Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Anthony Spencer for the Voice Spotlight. And tonight, today, or whenever, we have Sharise. Is that correct?
Sharise, yes.
Sharise Proctor. And we're going to talk about caregiving. How are you today, dear?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Good, good, good. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
In general,
In
just
general.
in
Yes, in
general
general. Yeah,
background.
we'll get into the caregiving, but in general.
Okay. General background, I'll say that I am the youngest of 8 children on from my mother's side. Um, Maybe the middle child of 9 on my father's side.
Okay.
And caregiving, yeah, I'll just talk about work history and everything. So outside of that, so basically being the youngest, I've always taking care of the nieces and nephews and things like that. So I'll say that my caregiving has been ongoing and forever. But Graduated from Coppin State College, have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in education, and I've done across the gamut of many areas. I've taught elementary school, love pre-K. I've operated a in-home daycare. Most of my case management work has been, I'm gonna say across the board. I've done HIV case management. I've done substance abuse, homeless veterans. What else? Worked with infants and toddlers program. And developmental disability. How could I miss that? Developmental disabilities. I've done that for quite a while.
Okay. So, in the introduction of yourself, you said that you took care of, I guess, family members,
Yes.
younger family members. So that begs the question, and it might be broad, but what is a caregiver?
Honestly, I'm gonna say well, basically I would say a caregiver is someone who genuinely or through employment provides any type of care to another person. It could be physical assistance, financial assistance. We have seniors who are taken advantage of quite often financially. Someone to help them navigate and make sure that they are protected. It's an advocate for someone else. Uh, I think caregiving is it's more than just physically caring for someone. Emotional caregiving crosses every gamut of wellness
Right.
in
And
my
and
opinion.
and that is I guess that's most people's opinion that when we speak of caregiving, we think of an uh, elderly, infirm, somebody that's having disabilities and
Mhm.
such. But caregiving runs a gambit of things. So,
Absolutely.
um, some people do it as a trade, as that's
Mhm.
what their job are. Um, but some people are, they either, I don't want to use the word thrust into it, but sometimes they find themselves in a position
Mhm.
that they are caring for a loved one.
Mhm.
Recently, I had an author on that spoke about into her marriage, her husband during COVID fell ill and she became a caregiver.
Mhm.
So let's kind of maybe stick to that form of caregiving
Okay.
because again, in her case and in some cases, in my case, briefly, I became the caregiver for my mother. But in those cases, sometimes they are not mentally or emotionally prepared for it. So as they find themselves in the caregiving position, what should they be aware of or be careful of?
One, I would honestly, I would say one of the things that I think caregivers in any aspect, self-care is huge for me. Like I think it's very important to there's a phrase like even raising my kids and everything. I used to always tell my kids, maintain your mental health. Because if you don't maintain your mental health, then you can't manage for anybody else, right? And so by maintaining your mental health, you put yourself in a position where you're not looking for somebody else to validate the things that you're doing. You're not looking for someone to encourage you with the things that you're doing. And I just think that when it comes to situations where family members are um, and again, we don't want to say like thrown or thrust in a position, but honestly, sometimes that's what it is. It's exactly that. It could be a car accident, naturally unexpected, and now your whole life has changed,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, and now you've gone from visiting mom or having a wonderful relationship with your husband to now you're looking at not just the physical wellness of someone, but you're adapting to their new mental outlook on how things are. You're adapting to managing doctor's appointments, managing finances, managing medication, managing their emotions, and you put so much into managing other people that you're not managing yourself.
Right.
So that's why one of the things that I've focused on, and I'll say over the years, I'm gonna say maybe it's probably been about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, that self-care for myself has been priority. And
Okay.
so I've been outside of just, being the youngest and babysitting the niece and nephews as they were born. I was a teen mom. And so my oldest child, who's 35 now, was born prematurely. She weighed a pound and 10 ounces when she was born. She stayed in the hospital for 3 months. So, I'm 17. I'm in 12th grade. I'm running back and forth to the hospital. I'm learning to manage medications. I'm learning to manage the little prongs on her. So it's so much that you're thrown into, but you're the parent. So you're not looking at it as if you're caregiving, because this is my sole responsibility. So with my daughter, I didn't look at her as me caregiving, right? Um, but as she got older and now that she's an adult, I feel like I absolutely did my job as a mother to teach her, don't allow people to do this and don't allow people to do. So she knows the rules of life, and sometimes naturally, because she is developmentally delayed, she may fall short where I'm coming back and I'm feeling like a parent again. But outside that, I try to keep my relationship with her as more of now a caregiver. Like she's responsible for her own decisions, but if those decisions aren't going right, I'm gonna help you as your caregiver. I don't want to force upon I'm your parent, because she is an adult. She does have her mental capacities, so and that's the other thing. I think caregiving gets a little more complicated when you have some people will look at her because she's in the wheelchair, right? And they wants to, pacify her. Well, I don't pacify. I've never pacified her. And with that mindset, I felt like I didn't want anyone to delay her more than what she was already delayed, if to say it like that. So if she gets smart at the mouth, you get punished. It was across the board. Whatever happened, if she was in the mix with the other nieces and nephews and they cutting up and she cutting up with them, she's punished too. Like, so I went across the board. So nothing, she wasn't exempt from anything, like even social activities. If we went roller skating, she went roller skating. Now, I would ask the skate guards. It's so funny because I used to ask the skate guards if they could roll her around the ring in her stroller, and they would do it. So she got those experiences where she's she's being I'm just going to say she's being exposed to life like anyone else, right? But then you have families who do not do that, and individuals are sheltered, which to me they miss out on a lot. Um, I think caregiving could be evaluated a lot of different ways because the actual caregiver is putting maybe their personality or even their beliefs on the other person. And so there's a fine line where you have to say, oh, that's not what they really want to do, or that's not what they believe. So just because I'm caring for you, you don't have to do it my way. And there you have to come to some type of compromise. It is a serious job. It's a real job. And it takes a lot of work.
Well, you just touched on something that was in my mind about,
Mhm,
um, I guess, imprinting on the person that you're giving care. You
mhm,
know, that's a little bit different from the person that maybe was there before
mhm.
they were there. But you did bring up another question that wasn't even on my list, and
Okay.
that parents are caregivers by nature because
By nature.
they're
Mhm,
kids. But in your case, and in probably some other cases, they have to be the parent at some point and then a
mhm.
caregiver at some point.
Yes.
Is is it difficult to segue between the two roles?
Absolutely. And like I said, I think well, I'm going to use her developmental delay as some of the basis of this because I've worked with other families, and then you have to also remember that developmental disabilities can go from severe, mild, moderate, it's a lot of different, it's levels to it, right? And I would say she is developmentally delayed physically. She uses a wheelchair. She attended Baltimore City Public Schools. She was in an inclusion class. So she was in a regular classroom setting with what we call normal kids, but today, what is normal exactly?
Yes.
Um, and so that's why I'm saying she was exposed to all of what all of the other kids were exposed to. And then you have some families who child may have more medical needs outside of the wheelchair. Or so they may have a trach and they have to go to a special school. So everybody at that school may be special,
Hmm.
right? But even still, in there's levels to that. You have nonverbal where you can't speak for yourself, but there are devices now. So I think that technology and things have changed so much where it does allow individuals with disabilities to be a little more independent, but you also have parents who have, and I don't want to use the word sheltered, but some individuals have been sheltered, and some of them have just really parents advocated for them so much that you miss that line where them allowing them to make their own decisions is becomes overwhelming, and a perfect example would be I would say I think it was last year I found out my daughter was on a dating website. Now, like I said, she's 35. She can have a conversation with the best of them, but she's still developmentally delayed, right? And so for someone who has not been in what I would call a serious relationship. Whatever her relationships that she's felt like they were serious enough till she was going to get married one time. Right now, this was to another individual with a disability. But when you get on a dating website, the parent in me would kick in because now I'm looking at, is this a website? Because they do have websites specifically for individuals with disabilities, which is wonderful. But I would say, and sometimes I question how or how I went about doing things with her. Because if I'm teaching you that there's nothing wrong with you except you can't walk, then you're believing that there's nothing wrong with you except you can't walk, right? So why would I get on a dating website that's only for special needs? Why wouldn't I get on a regular dating website?
Right.
But then when I'm thinking about it, oh gosh, well, she still has vulnerabilities. We still have people out here that play on people's vulnerabilities. So now the parent in me has to kick in, and it's looking like, wow, she's 35 and I have to monitor this because she's just feeling like I raised her. She's feeling like there's nothing wrong with her except she can't walk. To the point where this wonderful young woman of mine gave our address to some strange person who showed up at 9 o'clock at night, and she opened the door, and I wasn't aware. And this man was 6 feet tall and had a strong accent. And to me, that was someone that was looking to play on a vulnerability. And so luckily, I was able to intercede in that interaction because I just happened to come downstairs and this man is in my house. She sees nothing wrong with it, right? But in my eyes, what is this man doing? Like, why would you invite yourself, or why would you think it's okay to do this? But if she's saying she's 35 and this and that, why wouldn't she? So the parent kicked in. The extra support showed up because, I have a brother-in-law that lives close by. He's a police officer. He showed up. I went outside. I'm looking at the man had no tags on the car. It was a very, very dangerous situation that she didn't recognize the danger because she was socializing in a way that I would say, honestly, I raised her to socialize. So she don't automatically look for the dangers that I would look for as her parent.
Right.
So there is absolutely a fine line, but we do still navigate it. I did not, I did kind of in the moment, I did feel like we were chastising her, like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? Da da da. But at the same time, after, you decompressed a little bit and you have a conversation, look, I don't have a problem with you dating. I don't have a problem with you getting to know people, but the absolute thing you cannot do is allow someone to show up at the house like this. You know, and then I had to go over, well, he talked to her about the dangers of this man could have been scoping out the house. He may know when she's getting home because she is independent enough to where she gets home on her own. She can get in the house on her own, but naturally her reaction time is not what our reaction time is.
Yeah.
So you fall into the I don't want to say the parental role, I'm going to say the caregiver hat comes back on to where my employment had been flexible enough to where she calls me when she's leaving her program. When she gets home, if I'm not there yet, I'll probably say I'm 10 minutes behind. But most times I'm home when she gets home because you just never know. She does have what they call in the developmental world, they call it in her self time, independent time. So I can leave her home alone, but I don't go. I might go to the grocery store, you know, I have neighbors that look out. We keep the Ring doorbell camera. So it's things you put in place as the caregiver, but also as the parent. You still have to watch that line.
So I
And
have to ask,
it's definitely difficult.
so, and I guess with the situation, when you talked to her, what what was the outcome in her mind after you talked to her about this situation?
So for that situation, she felt like she had been talking to the person online for a week or two, not enough time. So so what happened was when she would say how they met or how long they were met, I would kind of counteract with, well, I don't mean no harm, but I've been knowing James for 3 years. You've never seen me let him come over here at 9 o'clock, you know. So it's like how you went about it opposed to how you've seen me go about things. And so I also used like just my general friendships. Like, you know, I have friendship with males that's not romantic or anything, but if I want to introduce you to a new person, I usually have a cookout, you know, no one is just showing up here at 9 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm.
You don't know him. We don't know him. Like, you know, so it's just like I kind of reiterate the responsibility of really getting to know somebody opposed to just talking on the phone and going by what they say, you know. So I tell you, you have to be around people to really know them. You know, you have to see how they operate, not just hear what they're saying to you. So we've done those type of conversations, and then she has cousins that are right around the same age bracket, male and female. So once I kind of shared that with the family, you know, the different cousins would come and say, hey, you know, don't do this, but I understand if you want to go on a date and you want one of us to go with you, then we'll just go do it as a group thing. So it's been things that's put in place so that she still can feel as normal as she feel, but also to learn some extra safety precautions when she's trying to meet new people.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I said you touched on one of the authors because she went into a caregiving role, but then you touched on Dr. Sharon Austin that I interviewed um, a few spotlights ago. Um, and I had interviewed her because she wrote a book about an autistic 5-year-old.
Okay.
And it harking back to her son who's autistic and now in his, I think he's in his 20s. But when we talked on the book and some on autism, but she definitely was a caregiver, and it just
Mhm.
got into my mind when you were talking that was part of that conversation, her being an author. I have we have some caregivers in our family now and some that are coming about. But we do have some caregivers. My other mom, my brother took care of her for several years before she passed just earlier this year.
Mhm.
But we have a cousin that took care of her husband for decades. So I guess when it comes to family, the caregiving is powered by love.
Mhm.
Um, but again, sometimes they're unprepared for what they find, the roles that they find themselves into. So I guess that gets to be when I was doing my research around for you for this
Mhm.
interview, I found that you have a company based on caregiving. Can you give us a little bit about that company?
Yeah, so it's called a PDC Family Consultant. So basically what happened was in my employment role, prior to the job that I have now, I found that so I used to work for a company where I was working with other families whose child had developmental disabilities. And in that role, I was helping them navigate the various services that's in the community that falls under DDA, that's Developmental Disability Association. So administration, I'm sorry. So basically, I would meet with families, and then again, the individuals vary. You have some individuals that will say, oh no, I want a job, I want to live by myself, I want this, I want this. And I was constructing or building a plan to help them reach those goals. And then you have individuals who, again, I have a relative who is nonverbal, understands everything you're saying, just can't say it. And also he's autistic. So there are little quirks that he have, like, he'll chew the meat, but he don't want to swallow. So it's things that you have to learn about them, but he also wants to do things outside of the home. So it's just learning to communicate with meeting people where they are really comes into play in this field of developmental disabilities. And so when I, as their coordinator, would say, well, what I helped my daughter do, they found it a little easier to talk with me and to kind of, I would say, be a little more open to hearing the different services that were available. Because again, you have those overprotective families who's been taking care of their loved one all the days of their lives. They don't want any new people in the home. They don't want to feel the guilt, because sometimes it's a sense of a guilt that I can't physically do this anymore, and they have to go into like a residential setting. It's honestly, it's heartbreaking.
Mhm.
I lived in another state when my daughter came back to Maryland without me, but my whole family was here, so I had a sense of she's going to be okay, but still we had never been apart. So it's a lot that families go through just even receiving services. And then it's a lot of services that families aren't even aware of, because I don't want to say they just don't have the knowledge, that they just not ask. Sometimes they're not asking the right questions, or they've been doing it so long, they haven't even tried, until, let's say, you get to be an older parent and now you can't. And it's like you're finding out, oh, they could have been doing this for years already. And now I'm just getting started. So it varies a lot. Honestly, it really varies a lot.
Okay.
And yeah, it varies.
So, PDC. So I'm assuming P is for Proctor. What about the DC?
Actually, I'm gonna
It's
tell
not?
you. So the PDC initially started with, yes, Proctor.
Okay.
My daughter's last name is Davis,
Okay.
and I have two sons who actually, as you know, when they were younger, I used to say, "Go in there and take care of your big little sister." So their last name is Coates, but I said, that's not it. It just stands for people do care.
People do care.
That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
But we know what it really stands for.
Yes, that's what it stands for.
All right. So on your homepage, is the tagline, tap into your overall wellness. Can you give us a quick description of that? Because I'm going to ask for a quick description of something else.
Absolutely. So tapping into your overall wellness is, like I said, it touched on everything. Tap into your mental health, tap into your physical health, your finances, social, emotional, spiritual wellness, in wellness in as a whole. And so what I was finding is, honestly, meeting with a lot of the families that I worked with, they some people felt like they could not go to church. They had not physically been in a church. They may watch online. Some of them weren't even watching church online. Socially, some families are always with their individual. So it's not like getting together with friends was a regular thing. Some parents, I had a mom that said, I don't have any friends. And so a lot of times when I would come over in the role to discuss, a quarterly check-in, I found that I might be there for an hour or two because we're socializing, and now I've become her friend, opposed to just her staff person for her child. And then you look at finances. A lot of caregivers, or I'll start with parents in general. If you are physically taking your care of your child and they're not going to like day programs and things like that, then economically you're not working. if you have not figured out how to navigate something from home or things like that. And sometimes just caregiving is overwhelming. So they did not do those things. I had some caregivers who did not complete school. So your education, tap into your educational wellness. Like, so you can not have a high school diploma and yet still learn a whole lot of new things.
Mhm.
So we talked about like there's a thing that comes across social media now called a skill a week. It's learning something new online that someone present. It could be making candles. It allows you to focus on something. It gives you a new skill. You're trying something new. So when I say tap into your overall wellness, anything that you've ever thought that you may have wanted to do, look into it. Let's work on that. Let's see
Yeah,
how we can
because
get you to that goal.
yeah, because it in some cases it looks like they sacrifice who they were, what they were doing to be
Mhm.
the caregiver. And sometimes when you think of that person, you think of when the person is not there any longer for them to give care to. It's like they have to reintroduce themselves to society.
Very difficult. Very difficult. And again, I'm going to use just myself as a teenage mom, right? So when my daughter was born, I was a student at Western High School. So academically, I was strong. I had a job since I was 14 years old. So I would go to work. It was just that some things within the family, I would say the youngest of eight, by the time you get to the eighth kid, you might be a little tired as a parent,
I
right?
understood. Yeah.
And so, I had a lot of free time, and I kind of ventured out and kind of did whatever. There's a sister, there's six boys, and then there's me, right? So
Okay.
nobody's really paying attention to the little girl, right? And then what you're seeing, or what I was seeing, is how boys operated, right? And so I was always a tomboy. So no one even thought, oh, she has a boyfriend, or because I just look like I'm hanging out with the guys, right? But as that 17-year-old mom, when I was at Western, I said I wanted to be a gynecologist. It was my intention to be a gynecologist, and I wanted to go away to school because I used to always tell people I felt like I was a part of a puzzle that didn't fit, right? And that my home life wasn't terrible, but I just felt like I didn't fit. I sent myself to school. Nobody had to wake me up to go to school. Whereas, like, most of my brothers may not have finished school. Like, they were kind of allowed to do what they wanted also, but my doing what I wanted, I did go to school. And so my intention was to eventually leave Baltimore, go away to college. And then when my daughter was born, I also had a brother with a disability. So even within my home, I was always a caregiver. My brother had spinal bifida.
Hmm.
Again, he had a physical disability, but nothing wrong with him up here, right? And so there were things that you had to help him with sometimes, but for the most part, he used a wheelchair, but he could transfer himself. My daughter can't even transfer herself. So she's considered what they call a spastic quadriplegic.
Okay.
So you have to physically move her
With her.
from one place to the next. Whereas my brother, his upper body strength was, oh, he was seriously strong, and he could navigate to move himself from one place to the other. He could use a wheelchair, or he would use crutches. Right. And so I think, I'm going to have to shift my view just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was trying to get not to have the glare show up. So I apologize.
No problem.
Um, so hopefully the light coming through the window is not so bad.
Not too bad.
But in doing so, once she was born, and then realizing that she had a disability, in my head, I felt like I can't go to college. I couldn't go away. I needed to stay with family. So I put a lot of limitations on myself that honestly, I could have went away and just took her with me because you just don't understand how developmentally delayed or how difficult it would be if I did go away. And so I limited myself in that aspect, but what I did, I just found a new route. So I was like, I needed to do the quick thing. I graduated high school, I went to cosmetology school, I did hair, I worked for the Department of Social Services. I made sure she went to school. She started school when she was 2. They had an infants and toddlers program. So I've always been big on her education because and talking to her, like I said, you could talk to her, you wouldn't think she's developmentally delayed. And I think that as a 35-year-old, most of her delay comes out when you look at relationships and friendships, right? It kind of feels like she want to have friendships that she see others have. Like I have friends that I've been friends with since pre-kindergarten, right?
Mhm.
She doesn't have that. And so the friends that she do have or and have kept in touch with over the years, like they don't hang out, they don't come visit, they don't, she might talk to them on the phone, but then when she see me and my friends and we're talking and we're sharing stories and we're laughing, she's like, I wish I had that. So it's those type of things. And so I think because she do still have desires that she have missed out on, she sometimes, in my opinion, she allow herself to be taken advantage of. So that's when I see the delay, right? And I think sometimes people set out to take advantage of that. She's a very lovable person and she's a very giving person, and they focus in on the giving and they take advantage of that. So I always have conversations with her about those type of things. And I just remind her that, just like I thought I couldn't do something, I could have. I think that families look at what might be, and then they put a limit on what they can do, opposed to trying to continue to see it for, okay, this is still my child. This is how I'm going to have to do it, but I still have to do that. Now, I do also understand in some situations, some individuals' health is a bit more severe. So you may have to make a huge modification to your life.
Mhm.
But in the process, I think we still need to look at our own lives, right? And I think that for myself, honestly, because I had my daughter and then I got custody of my niece, and then I was raising one of my nephews, and then I had 2 sons. So technically, I always say I have 5 kids. 2 of them aren't biologically mine, but we've been this is what we've been doing.
Mhm.
And you go and you go and you go, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I like to travel. And it wasn't until I reached that empty nest stage that I said, I'm just going to take myself on a trip, right? I love traveling. I I only want to find myself at the airport. Like I just want to go. So,
Right,
and right now, that's pretty much what I do. I've realized that I love it, and sometimes I have to take you with me, whether you want to go or not.
right.
But for the most part, as long as she's with me, she's okay. Now, sometimes she don't want to be bothered, and I do have to respect that also. So then that's when the caregiver starts to look for, okay, who's going to cover this, who's going to cover this, and who's going to cover that. And so what we've done in my home is once a month I get a weekend. And so I may have a brother that's going to spend the night at the house, and then my niece might come to take care of her physically, give her a bath and those things. And then she might have a friend that'll say, oh, well, we could go to the mall or something on Saturday. So she'll call mobility, she'll be out of the home, things like that. So I have a great network. And I don't think a lot of families have that level of support. But I also think that whatever support you have, if you guys can work something out where you can find just an hour, like taking a bath is a big deal. Like when you can really just get in the bathtub and relax yourself and just let your thoughts go. I don't care if you cry or whatever, like a bath becomes your self-care. And if someone if you could get someone just to come over and sit with your individual that you're caring for while you go do that, it's wonderful. Going to the grocery store should not be self-care.
Right, right.
But some people feel like it is. They sit in the car, they have a meal to themselves, they listen to whatever music they want to listen to, or whatever. So carving out just a little bit of time is like, if that's the best you can get, you make sure you have to get it. And that's what I tend to do.
So I'm going to point them, our viewers, at your website, and
Okay.
but you have, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spots because I know my mind goes sometimes. You have 7 dimensions of well-being. And I'm not going to ask for, I was going to ask for a description, but I want to point them at your website. So
Let me,
do you
and
have
I'm
to?
gonna have to take a look because sometimes, when you just pull them up or you just thinking right off the top, I want
Exactly.
to, yeah, I just kind of want to, hopefully this just jumps right up. Give me 1 second.
And actually, I can probably pull it quicker than you can.
Okay.
All
No,
right. So,
it came right up.
okay. So,
So,
and we're just going to ask you to tell them.
okay,
We're not going to ask for explanations because for those that are caregiving, we do want them to reach out to you.
okay,
We also will have you at our church to speak during our tranquil transformations. So
yes,
again, I don't want to give them everything. I want to give them a little taste
okay,
so that maybe they'll come and see you, and that's where we'll meet face to face.
okay.
But give us the 7 dimensions of well-being.
Okay, so let's the first one, let's just say physical. The physical dimension is just you caring for yourself. Making sure simple things, making sure you're going to the doctors. If you're taking medication, making sure you're taking your medication. We have some people that may do so much caregiving. I forgot to take my medicine today. Like,
Mhm.
so you have to make sure you incorporate what you have to do physically so that you're physically able to continue to do what you're doing for someone else.
Okay.
And then with your emotion on an emotional level, it's just caring for your mind. When you're feeling overwhelmed or overburdened, because we do, like, say something. Don't continue to hold things in, because then you start falling into like the caregiver who's actually depressed,
Right.
the caregiver who's angry that they're caregiving, or the caregiver that's doing it out of guilt just because it's my mom.
Okay.
Or it's like, so you don't want you kind of want to have yourself emotionally in a place where when you're genuinely doing something, you're genuinely doing it. And
Gotcha.
if something's genuinely making you angry, you're able to express those things and then get them out and then move on. And moving on is not just, oh, it's over. Moving on might be, let me get through the day. I might have to revisit this anger again because it's going to creep back.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
those type of things.
Yeah.
The dimension of intellectual would go back to learning something. Like, so some of us are caregivers, like you say, by nature. So if your mom got sick and now all of a sudden you're a finance guy that's going to work every day, and my mom comes first. I'm going to take care of my mom. And so now you have to look at, how do I care for my mom? How is caregiving actually going to go? What type of support will I need? So it's like learning those different things on how to actually be a good caregiver. You don't want to be just sitting with someone, and not really caring for them.
Right.
And then again, the social aspect would be getting yourself out and engaging with others. outside of just always being right with your individual. Like I said, I take my one weekend a month. My daughter is sometimes she might go to a relative's house and I can stay home and do nothing.
Right.
And when I say do nothing, I mean do nothing, So it happens. Sometimes someone will come here and be with her, and I might take a little trip and go somewhere. And guess what? I'll be at the hotel and do nothing. But sometimes you need to change that scenery and things like that.
Right.
Spiritual naturally is understanding just your purpose. Like your purpose is just not to be a caregiver,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
within being a caregiver, there is other purposes. Like and just tapping into those things to figure out what is it. What I learned early on is that I always believe that I'm genuinely a helper, just across the board. And it's funny because I said I could be in the grocery line and people to start talking to me, and then here I am giving advice or suggestions, or you know what? I know this person. Wait a minute, let me help you here. So I'm genuinely a helper, but sometimes even being genuinely a helper, the caregiving part is like, oh, I don't want to do this again. But honestly, I would probably care for anybody,
Right.
So it's not just a family situation. And then where we at? Occupation,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So, like I said, sometimes you have individuals who were employed and then something happens, and now I'm a caregiver and it's interfering with your work, or how can you do this? And just branch out. Just think about some other things that you may like, especially if it's something where you are going to be the sole caregiver, right? Um, we found things for people to do online. I don't mean no harm. I had a lady that said, "Oh, this was a mom." She said, "I love door dashing," right? Who would think? Like some people would think, DoorDash is just a quick thing to do in between. No, DoorDashing became her job. And you know what she said? She enjoys talking to the people, delivering to someone, and just meeting new people. And she loved driving. So who knew,
Wow.
right? So it's things that you can do while you're a caregiver that, as far as an occupation. Okay, some people, some families who've been, let's say, thrusted into caregiving has created businesses out of it because it's really not what you thought it would be. And
Mm.
then the other thing is, let's say you're a caregiver, you've been thrusted into this thing, and you have people coming into your home, or you've sent your loved one out of the home, right? And when you go to visit, you're like, now, I wouldn't have my person living like this. Like, what are they doing? It was easier for them to stay at home, right? And so a lot of families have changed over to doing that. And then I think the last one is the environmental. And so environmentally, it's like you thinking about if your environment is always right here in the home and not doing anything, you it's like you're limiting yourself, you're limiting the individual you're caring for. And so when on the website, some of the things that I'd like to, or I'm not going to say I intend to do is, I have a lot of caregivers who have never traveled. So I'd like to do some caregiver travel events, like, just whatever you can think of that you haven't done. I'd like to help you find a way to do those things.
Okay. So that brought a question to mind.
Uh-huh.
And we know PDC is there
Mhm.
for the caregivers. Is, do you have something for the post caregiver where the people that they've watched over are no longer here? And that question only came to mind when I'm hearing this because I'm learning a lot from this.
Mhm.
So, is there something for the caregiver that is no longer a caregiver?
Yeah, so I think with us, there's something for everyone because at the end of the day, I don't consider that person no longer a caregiver because at some, I and because I have this situation, I have a friend who her son passed away. He was like we did things together, you know, we hung out together, and when I moved away, you know, they were still here. He went to school and everything like that. And then when he finished school, they were just home. So I can kind of use her situation as one of the situations that I referenced before. Her life was her son, right? And so, yes, we did go out and go to the club sometimes, but that was always on a Saturday, you know, and sometimes we would go out to eat, excuse me, or something like that. But outside of her son, there was nothing. And so when her son was no longer here, it was she was stuck, like just physically stuck. And you know you try to step in and say, hey, let's do this, and you try to do this, and they holding on to the clothing, the you know physical little things to remind them of the person. But I'm trying to remind you that you're still you,
Right.
right? And so what I have found was that a lot of times when the person that you've primarily cared for may not be here anymore, sometimes a caregiver will find somebody else to give care to,
Oh,
right? And it could be something on a smaller scale or a different scale because I don't people I understand I'm not a pet person, but people love their animals, right? And
right.
you'll find that a lot of times to replace a person that has passed on, they'll pick up an animal, right? And so I'm still taking care of something. I'm still being a caregiver. And then at the same time, I'm still trying to talk to her about, but what is it that you want to do for you? And I can tell you, even to this day, it hasn't been a lot of movement on there. And I think that the lack of movement, and I'm not going to say that this would be for everybody's situation, but I think that sometimes when you get stuck in your stages of grief and you can't figure out, okay, how do I get to this next part of me, then it's just going to take a while. So I wouldn't say that they're no longer a caregiver.
Okay.
I would say that they're just a caregiver that's not the person is not physically there because in their mind, I'm still stuck. So I'm still that caregiver.
Okay. Good, good, good. Okay. Um, when this airs, the weekend, you're going to have, if I'm not mistaken, the first annual Caregivers Block Party on the lot. Give us a
Yes.
quick description of that.
So basically, and this came about, I was out of town last year. I used to work with homeless veterans,
Hmm.
and me and my sisters, we were in Philadelphia, and we stumbled on a block party for Veterans Day. And so in my head, I was like, oh, that would be a wonderful idea for caregivers because caregivers, this is November begins Family Caregiver Appreciation Month.
Okay.
And naturally, Veterans Day falls in November. So I said, oh, next year, I'm going to do my first block party, right? And then when I started looking into, in the beginning of this year, my daughter got sick. So I didn't have as much planning as I thought I would. So instead of doing an actual block party, there's a site called The Lot, and it's a lot where it's a community lot where they have events where vendors trade off things. You know, you can come and rent the lot and sell things, or you could be a vendor. So I decided to rent the lot and have a lot party, right? And so we have the DJ coming, we have an MC, we have a little marching band that's going to be there celebrating caregivers. There's going to be some vendors coming out. I know that the health department is coming out with resources for caregivers and just overall health and wellness. I think that one was through John Hopkins actually. But I also been in touch with Baltimore City Health Department because they have through the health department, they have the Department of Aging and they have resources for caregivers. There's a program for caregivers. So hopefully they do find the time to participate. So I'm just saying that it's honestly going to be a day of caregivers just coming out to socialize, get some resources, enjoy themselves, meet some new caregivers, like
Where is it going to
engage with
be?
some other people. So the lot is located, if I'm not mistaken, it's 4500 Harford Road. If you're familiar with Baltimore City, there's a Safeway on Harford Road, and diagonally across the street, there's a lot and there's a small building. It's before you get to Harford and Moravia.
I'll put in Moravia. I know where the Safeway is.
Directly across the street. There used to be an old gas station and
Okay.
they knocked it down and now it's a lot and they put a nice building there. So it's going to be an indoor and outdoor situation. Just in case there is some type of weather.
Now you remarked on my shirt earlier, so
Mhm.
are you still taking vendors?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll give her a call and I'll tell her about it. She came to an event that we actually had. It was ours was called at the church Holy Smoke Praise on the Parking Lot. So
Okay.
she came to it. So I'm going to get in touch with her mom or her, and I'll tell her about it, and maybe she can get there. Now that's on November the 1st,
November 1st from 12 to 5.
from 12 to 5. Okay.
Mhm.
So as we winding down, like I said, I got in touch with you through Minister Kier or Reverend Kier, my little sister. So, um, what should we expect at Tranquil Transformation?
I would say transparency.
Okay.
I'm very transparent about everything that I've been through and that I do for others and myself. Um, I would say entertainment.
Okay.
I am mostly a happy person. I can find a joke in just about anything. You're going to find some sense of relaxation. So I always try to make sure we do address some form of wellness. There could be deep breathing. There could be a little bit of stretching. There could be a little bit of meditation. So the wellness will be there. Good conversation, resources. You can expect it all.
All right. So I'm gonna do something a little different here.
Uh-huh.
Usually I ask my guests to um, talk to or say something to the viewership. But
Okay.
this time I'm not going to ask that of you because I want them
Okay.
to come to Tranquil Transformation. So
Okay.
they they will have the opportunity to talk to you and you can talk to them in person. So we're going to
Okay.
leave it at that. We're not going to say goodbye. We're going to say see you later. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate the information and knowledge that I've gained from it. I think that I have a couple people. We put it out on YouTube, and we kind of put it out and say, "Hey, you guys look at it and share." But I have a couple people in my head that I want to send to them directly and say, "You need to see this. You need
Okay.
to see this," for their own personal education, experience, and welfare. So we're going to say goodbye for now.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll be meeting you in person um, at Tranquil Transformation. However, don't be surprised if you see me or some of my fellows at the first annual Caregivers Block on the Lot.
Absolutely. By all means, come on down.
We
Come
appreciate
on
you.
down.
So we're gonna.
There may even be caregiver karaoke.
I won't do that, but okay. But yes, I'm going to. We are going to probably put this out on a special day. We usually wait till Fridays, but I'm probably going to release it before Friday, so
Okay.
that people can maybe get their plans and stuff together to come and see the caregivers block party. So we're going to say goodbye for now, and we appreciate you for showing up.
Thank you so much for having me, and reach out anytime. If this was wonderful, I appreciate it.
Believe me, we have a new nonprofit that's starting. Sandy Johnson's Have a Heart to Help. I got ideas to reach out to you for that as well.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, you do the same.
All righty.